You all right?
Yeah, not so bad. Not so bad. You know, we've had sunshine. Now we've got wind.
Now we've got Storm Noah on the way.
Oh, is this Noah?
Yeah.
That's a bit of an
I'm not sure if that's the right pronunciation. It's Noa, and it's French because the French have named this one.
I was going to say, because that's a bit of an unfortunate name for a storm, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. Yeah, the dogs are looking worried. Yeah.
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was Stephen's birthday yesterday.
It was my son's 15th birthday yesterday.
You old bastard.
Well, how he got there, I have no idea. There were many points on the way that could have not made it to 15. No, he's doing all right, and he's now the proud owner of one of those Soda Stream.
Soda Stream.
Yeah, Soda Stream. He's now the proud owner of a Soda Stream. So we got him a Soda Stream because, for at least 6 months, it will keep him amused whilst he makes his own fizzy drinks for a while.
Because I think every 15-year-old boy wants something where he can press a button and things squirt out unexpectedly. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely the future.
Yes.
Yeah, less manual work.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Please wish him many happy returns from me.
Watch it, or we'll start getting put on the same list as the Dalai Lama. So,
Yeah. Dodgy old bastard, yeah. Which, yeah, that really surprised me. That was not what I was expecting this year.
No, and I thought it was the timing of the release of the apology at the time when the Chinese are actually running like war games about surrounding Taiwan as well. I thought was hilarious.
It's an oddity, yeah, because I just thought nonsense were in the Catholic Church. I didn't realise they were in other religions as well.
Well,
yeah.
That Catholic Church, Buddhism, rock and roll, children's entertainment, they're everywhere.
They're the wrong thing, aren't we? Yeah.
Can you tell we've been watching films with the word hell in the title?
Yes, we have. That was it. Yes, that's what it was. That's what's caused it. Yeah.
We have been corrupted. All that time I've been defending horror movies and saying that they cannot possibly corrupt tiny minds. I think we've just
our tiny minds have been corrupted. Yes,
we've just put conservative right. We've just proved them correct.
Yeah, which I suppose. Go ask the question. Ask the question.
Ash, what have we been watching this week?
This week, Colin, my friend, we have been watching Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. Would you like me to give you a synopsis of it?
Please.
Right, this is a synopsis that's from TV Tropes, because I was too lazy to think about it myself. It's the third film in the Hellraiser series. At an antique shop in New York, a nightclub owner named J.P. Monroe purchases an old statue pillar for his private collection. Several weeks later, in a hospital emergency room, reporter Joey is witness to someone being ripped apart by meat hooks that came out of nowhere. The trail leads her back to the to the club, where she befriends a girl named Terry, who brought the person in. But Terry herself is hesitant of telling Joey anything. Monroe learns that the statue contains the essence of the Cenobite Pinhead when it devours a girl alive in front of him, and is eventually convinced by Pinhead to bring him more victims in exchange for power. When Joey is visited by the spirit of Captain Elliot Spencer, that's Pinhead's human self, she learns that Pinhead has become evil incarnate and wants to plunge the world into hell. Ta-da! What did you think?
Yeah, that was a film I watched, definitely.
What did you think of the film?
What do I think of it?
Yeah.
You know what?
Go on.
I liked it.
Same here.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think it's because Hellraiser up there, Hellraiser 2 down there, and whatever came after it has got to be bouncing upwards.
Well, no, not quite, but this one definitely. Yeah, Hellraiser 2 genuinely is not the worst Hellraiser movie out there, right? And actually, this one, I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of things I really enjoyed about it. There's a lot of things that we complained about Hellraiser 2 that this one did really well. I thought, which was setting the scene, setting the reality that we were in. It used schema from the previous movies to say, you're in a Hellraiser universe, baby. Yes, some of the effects are, I think the technical term is shit, but...
of their era.
Well, no, I don't even think they're of their era. I think they're kind of like from the Kenny Everett video show, some of them.
Yeah,
right?
yes.
But it didn't really matter because it didn't try to be more than what it was. It wasn't trying to be any massively philosophical concept. It set the world in which it was in. It just went, here you are. I think it was New York. I don't quite remember it being mentioned. Some arbitrary American city with a very odd nightclub in it, which only ever appear in American movies. You know, fire out as part of the signage, you know, that kind of thing. And there's this guy walking around who thinks he's some sort of man guard. Yeah, and then it starts going creep. I like the way it started with an oddity that made you go, "What's going on?" You know, and said, "You are watching a Hellraiser movie. Here's some hooks in someone."
Yeah,
you know, but then it really dropped back and allowed that uncanny to unfold before getting to the weird. And then when the weird really hit, when we had it really went for it. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I mean, good casting. I mean, obviously Doug Bradley knows what he's doing in that role. Terry Farrell, she went on to play Dax in Deep Space Nine and was sort of like a regular character within that. So she's got solid acting chops in there. The others weren't quite as strong, but yeah, it was really entertaining. It got structure. We knew what was happening. It could be followed along. And yeah, it ticked all the right boxes for me. There were a couple of bits where sort of like they're in the nightclub and some woman's got to flash her boobies because for some reason you'd need boobies flashing in a horror movie.
It wasn't all highlights. There were some bits of it that weren't enjoyable to watch.
Such as?
No, it's just mainly the some of the effects, which were a little unnecessary. I mean, I love the way it started. I love the way it had this idea of the box chooses the person who's looking for something and doesn't know what they're looking for. It went back to that original idea at the beginning of Hellraiser, but set it in an art gallery. I liked all that, and I liked the way that they went searching for it, and the art gallery hadn't been open for weeks, you know, and you had all that kind of stupidity going on, which I thought was great. But when you got towards the end and you had the original captain and Pinhead, and they started and emerging together and doing that, and that wasn't pleasant. I mean, there's actually a lovely practical effect that happens in the middle of it, where they do a prosthetic on Doug Bradley's face and it's twisting into the other face, and I'd rather have seen that a lot longer and not do anything rather than the kind of strange digital effect that came from 1980s Channel 4 music programs half the time.
Yeah, I know the part that you're talking about, and yeah, it was a bit. It could have taken me out of the moment if I'd been.
I think the thing is you can forgive it, can't you? Because it does have some very nice ideas. The design of the Cenobites makes sense in this one, like in Hellraiser 2, like you said, this strange arbitrary tentacle that doesn't seem to be attached to anything, just hanging this guy about, doesn't make any sense. It's just, let's do something weird. But this one, and I like the way in this one as well that Pinhead sits there and goes, they're handmade. They're not as powerful as the ones that come from hell, but they'll do.
Yeah.
I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, I like that. I also like the fact that it's playing on the themes of the time that were upsetting people and worrying people. So you've got it set in a 90s New York nightclub where one of the greatest fears that people have is the exchange of bodily fluids. And you've got sort of like all these bodily fluids being spattered all over the place, which I thought was a very good way of tying in the fears of the time with the themes of the story. Well, that worked really well, yeah.
And come back in, welcome stage left, the moralistic tale. you know, which is in the first one, completely void in the second one, as far as we could see, comes back in this one. And I'm not even going to say with a vengeance, because it wasn't the overarching idea, but it had that classic horror trope of the guy is a bad guy. You know, it's the only one that you kind of Doc, wasn't it? The guy, the video man with the video camera.
Yes.
Because there was a little part of him, I don't know if it's deliberate or he was just a bad actor, but part of it was like, oh, isn't he a nice guy? But another part of it is like, get off her. You're too old for her, because he kind of had that uncomfortable interest in the reporter.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. There was a tiny bit of a noncy vibe to him, yes.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. So yeah, he either could have done without that. No, I get what you're saying. He was definitely after ferreting up there. Yeah, that's not good for anyone.
So, yeah. So, but he got his
proper. He got
turned into He had a proper cum catcher on him. The but I like the way they kind of inserted the camera in him, in his head. You know, there was a theme to the Cenobites. You could see where it was coming from. Wasn't quite sure why the one guy was blowing flames, but there you go. Probably just if we're going to do pitch meeting with it, it's so they can blow up at the end. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And it made sense for sort of like that woman to have sort of like had a throat opened up so she could have a fag in there, because one of my criticisms against it was it did feel like I'd smoked 2 packs by the time I got to the end of it. It was every other scene.
Oh, they were just in the fuck scene, right?
Yeah, he's got a fag.
He's smoking whilst he's on the job.
Yeah, which it's just. Yeah, concentrate. Yeah,
yeah. But I thought that was a really.
I'm jealous because I can't multitask like that. Yeah,
yeah, answering his emails.
That was.
No, I like that. I know it's a little bit jarring when you first see it, because you're not used to seeing people doing that. But I thought it was a nice little mechanism for showing you how much this guy just didn't give a fuck about people. That little bit, I'm going to smoke whilst I'm fucking you, because I don't care about, I'm going to use you as an ashtray. I really don't care, that kind of level, to show you this is a really amoral man that's about to get his comeuppance. And I loved that in it, to be perfectly honest with you. And it had a skinless body. It had to, you have to have a skinless body in a Hellraiser movie. So it had one of those for a brief period. But it's that, I like the fact that it did set it up going one way to say, so you got Doug Bradley playing a column, right? And with a great line in it. Jesus Christ, not quite. And then you got this guy that's set up to be the protagonist for him, in a kind of like, as that woman is to Frank, can't remember her name, to be that. But then just part the way through, what feels like halfway through that narrative arch, takes him out. Completely takes him out. And it turns into that other one. And you never really, and I felt a bit sorry for that. Was it Terry, her name was? Because she's...
Terry Farrell?
The young one that stays with the reporter.
Oh, Paula, yes.
Paula. Yeah. So when she... you don't really see what happens to her. She just ends up as the
Cenobite,
the Cenobites, yeah. And it's like that because she just happens to be caught in the room, and she's managed to sort of like offload the guy into the column, and then and released Pinhead, and then that's it. You don't really see much else of that. So,
and in other circumstances, I would have been sort of like whining, saying, "Oh no, we didn't get to follow through on this part, and this part was unclear." But I don't think it needed the ramming home and the clarification. I think the fact that we knew something was going to happen to her, that was enough. The fact that she pops out and it's sort of like, look at me, I've got fanny throat with a fag dangling out of it. That makes a great idea for a story, that, but
I'll just write that name, fanny throat, down. That's just fanny throat. And actually, it did do this really. It did compartmentalize really well in that respect, because you only had almost like one of each. It didn't repeat itself particularly often. There wasn't much talking to the pillar when he first comes out, and it's kind of like, here's the oddity. You're going to buy it? Yes. How much? What do you want to pay? You know, that kind of malarkey.
Yeah.
Then it kills one person, which is only one person that gets killed. That piques the interest of the reporter. Then she goes into the place, and you get, here is a debauched nightclub. Here's the one scene of the debauched owner treating one woman like shit.
Yeah.
And so it moved on nicely like that. You didn't have 2 or 3 scenes ramming it home that this guy is a bad un. It's really efficient in its storytelling, because it wants to get to the nuts and bolts. It wants to get to it's desperately trying to get to the scene of a nightclub full of dead bodies that she's got to climb over to get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole thing of it being hell on earth tied in so neatly with when she's running away and escaping from there, that you've got flames coming out of the ground from the New York thingies.
From the whole subway system.
Yeah, so you've got flames pouring out of the ground, you've got stuff like all the Cenobites coming out, and then the Cenobites start attacking the police and they're invincible. And as you say, you've got Mr. Flamethrowery Man. Yeah. Yeah, it was working really well for me. I really, really enjoyed it. And I'd thought, when I picked it, I'd thought, why the fuck did you pick this one, Ashley? Number 2, surely that should have been enough for you. And I was kind of glad that I had. Because last night, what did I watch last night? Last night, I started looking at the X-Files.
Oh.
And watched season 1, episode 1 of that, thinking this used to be really popular in the 90s. Everybody loved this. It used to be great. And it was fucking drivel.
Yes.
It
hasn't aged well.
My high expectations for the X Factor meant that I perceived that as being inferior to Hellraiser 3 when I'd got in with low expectations.
And Hellraiser 3 is absolutely 100% an exploitation movie of a franchise. But I tell you what, as a writer, if you want to see how to make an exploitation movie of a franchise, Hellraiser 3 is the one to watch. The rest of them, they just almost phone them in, and that's the problem with them. And Doug Bradley's brilliant, and you understand why they've made like 27 of them, because he's brilliant. And when he drops off and is no longer Pinhead, they still make 3 of them without him as Pinhead, and they're terrible, terrible films. So they're obviously just tax write-offs or tax avoidance schemes or something like that. The reason that they're making them, but this one here is, like I say, you got the second one, which tries for its money. It tries to do a Clive Barker thing. It really does try. And I think the problem with Hellraiser 2 is it fails to deliver what it's trying to actually do. With this one, delivers in spades what it's trying to actually do. And that is just take a franchise name, take the main character, throw him into a different situation, and have lots of gore. You know, and it does that kind of. It is a process of ticking boxes, but it shows you how to do a box ticking film really well, I think. You know.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It did everything that I wanted in a silly, diverting horror movie.
Yes.
As you say, there were no great mental challenges. I was sort of like that, even though he was meant to have all this art, even though we'd got sort of like suggestions of character. The characters were, he's a twat. That's as much as you needed to know about him. He's a twat. He's going to get what he deserves.
And they made the reporter likable.
Yeah.
That was just, and how did they do that? She put a Wathan straight up for the night.
Yeah.
All she did was somebody reached out. Yes, she's being a cutthroat reporter. That's the only reason she's putting the Wathan straight up for the night. But she does it, and she actually shows empathy to that character. And as a consequence, she becomes the likable character that you can root for.
Yeah. And yeah, I would happily root for Terry Farrell any day of the week. Yes.
I'd root for Terry Farrell in the cheap bins.
Yeah, damn right. No, she was brilliant in Deep Space Nine. She's not the one. Oh no, that's Terry Hatcher I'm thinking of. I was going to say she's the one from Superman, but no, she's not. Yeah, yeah. I thought it had got everything that I want in a horror movie. Yeah, and I will happily go back to that one day.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those ones. So you jump from the first one to the third one, avoid the second until you get to the point where you've forgotten how bad the second one is, and you start getting confused into whether you liked it or not, because the others are of such an ilk that you think, surely I'm getting it wrong, and then you watch it and realise you're not.
Yeah, it was. I suppose the one thing I didn't like in it was is she called Ashley Lawrence, the Kirsty character?
Kirsty, yeah.
Yeah, just there was no need for her. I mean, it was a bit of a callback to the other ones, but I was trying to forget the other ones, and then you've got her pixelated arse in the middle of a found footage bit.
But she's in the thing. She's in the thing. Remember, you always got to remember you got to remember pitch meeting with the producer guy. Whenever they bring someone back, it's because she's in the thing.
Yeah, no, it's unnecessary. No,
also, she might have been signed to 3 movies, so they had to contractually have her in it. You don't know.
Yeah, that could have been it. But yeah, she was. She wasn't my favourite part of it. Yeah,
absolutely. And she had absolutely. I mean, there's flat characters whose only purpose within the actual story is to provide information to one of the other characters. I don't even think she was that. Because there was absolutely zero bearing at all, apart from the fact they've gone, oh, we've got this stuff, it's come from this hospital. Oh, can I have the video of Kirsty, please? Yeah, there you go, because we don't want it. She's a miserable cow. Like that. Right? Yeah. But you should have seen her in the second one. The first one, she was feisty. She was kind of like the underdog. In the second one, she was just a bitch. Right? So you kind of put it on, and they put the video on, and it has absolutely zero bearing whatsoever to what is going on screen.
It just looked like a drama school audition that had been badly filmed. As though somebody sort of like said, right, emote, get angry with somebody who's just off camera. And and she attempted that. And
I want you to act like someone's just stolen your Marmite.
yeah, that worked perfectly. Yeah.
So this one, we're going to give it a thumbs up from a review point of view. From a creative writing point of view, I think this is, because one of the things we've all got to remember as writers is that there are going to be points in our careers where we're going to just have to write something that's not original and probably shit. Yeah. Because you get paid for it. And if you're going to do it like Hellraiser 3. Yeah. Because I think that does it. It's even the bad actors in it weren't destroyed by the script. Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. It was one of those things that was functional, and we're meant to talk about our writing as though, this is the creative process, and this is how my muse strikes me. And people step away from this whole idea that it's a commodity that we're creating, and we shouldn't be stepping away from the whole idea that it's a commodity. We should be sort of like embracing that, and this one does embrace that. Yeah, absolutely
embraces it. Yeah. Well, there we go.
So what are you watching next week? Is it Hellraiser 4?
No, Bloodlines. No. See, I even know the name of it. It's actually right from a really kind of shit point of view. There's a lot more. I'm going to say this to the people at home because we're not watching it, because we're going to do something. We're going to read something for a week, and then we're going back to horror movies, but we're going to go back to a different franchise. But it is worth dipping your toe into Hellraiser 4 because it's the one that does an awful lot of backstory for Pinhead. So I do have a soft spot for it. But there are no other Hellraisers after that. They just don't exist. You may see them on lists. They are figments of your imagination. Unless you really want to do one of those drinking games, where you play Hellraiser bingo or something like that, because they do turn into those quite badly. But Hellraiser 3 is the trilogy. Hellraiser 1, 2, and 3 is the trilogy. And it's weird how it changes. It's weird how my mind has changed, because I remember when I first watched Hellraiser 3. Remember, I said I went to the cinema to see Hellraiser, blew my tiny little mind. Went to the cinema to see Hellraiser 2 and got very confused over watching a shit movie that I think I should have supposed to have enjoyed. And then I went to see Hellraiser 3. And when you first see Hellraiser 3, at that moment in time, it was a bit trashy. And it wasn't what you wanted out of a Hellraiser movie. But now time has passed, and you're looking at these things in a retro way. It is everything I want out of a Hellraiser movie.
Yeah, I mean, all the sets and everything, it's almost got sort of like that lovely feel of Jason Takes Manhattan, which I know you're not particularly keen on Jason Takes Manhattan.
It's a rubbish film, that's the problem.
No, it's not. It's lovely. It's got a pen that was owned by Edgar Allan Poe in it.
The problem with Jason Takes Manhattan is again, it's that expectation. The actual concept of Jason Takes Manhattan, the way he walks across the Hudson Bay, underwater, all that kind of stuff, I love all that. But the deaths are just not interesting. And there's a lot of people just dying in very ordinary ways. And that's the problem is with slasher movies, it's like one of my favorite slasher franchises, which we will go to in the future, is Final Destination. Because it's the imagination of the death. And I've always said that when you're watching slasher movies, you're watching three things. You're watching the main killer, and is it an interesting character or creation? You're watching him take out the most annoying people in the world, because that's why he's taken them out. So you are rooting for the slasher killer, because that's the point of them. And the deaths need to be interesting. So they need to be blood all over the place, or like Friday the 13th. Part 3D, for example, which on the face of it is a god-awful movie. But firing spear guns into the camera and pokers coming through someone's head, so the eyeballs on the end of it, these are interesting, gooey effects, and that's what you're laughing at. Jason Takes Manhattan doesn't really have any of those. You're not sitting there laughing at the deaths in it, which is kind of what you're supposed to do in a slasher movie, I think.
We're going to have to get around to that one, because there are a couple. I'm sure there's somebody who's doing a rock video who gets killed in that, and that made me smile.
I will dip into the Fridays. We won't do it as the full range, I don't think, but we'll definitely dip into it, because we're going to have to discuss the original and 2, and we're going to have to discuss Jason X.
Damned right. And
as
maybe
well,
Eddie and Jason.
Yeah, so Jason Takes Manhattan, maybe in the middle of it.
Right. So
what for 3D? I think Jason 3D. He squeezes the head and the eyeball pops out. It's hilarious.
What are we watching? What are we reading then next week?
What we're reading this week is we've had a story sent in to us by Danny, as I said. She has sent us a story called Platitubes, which I know is supposed to be was the Queen's Jubilee thing. So anyway, if I remember the story right, if it's the one I think, because I haven't looked at it yet, I just got the email and I forwarded it straight onto you. If it's the one I think it is, then it's the one where everyone's walking around with octopuses on their head.
Fantastic.
And if it's that one, I am so looking forward to reading the edited version of it, because she's edited this one as well. She's actually, because Danny's notorious for not editing her work. She just writes first drafts, which are stunning, and then just puts them away and the world doesn't see them. So we will be sharing with the world, with our 65 subscribers.
Brilliant.
We shall be sharing Danny's work of Platitubes next week, or next time. I'm not even going to do it in weeks nowadays.
Really, really looking forward to it.
You should be. Anyway, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you for suggesting that one, Ash. That was great.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, really enjoyed that one. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll see you on the dark side, I suppose.
TTFN.
Bye.